This short story is called Churn, the Unturning Tide by Neugebauer. Pregnancy changes everything, every damn thing. Not just in the obvious ways, breasts and belly and hips expanding. My actual rib cage is spreading open. My face is softer. My joints are more elastic. From fuller, shinier hair all the way down to widening feet with sudden plantar warts, every part is changed in some way. My feet ache enough that I have on orthopedic shoes, even for the walk across the water park to set my bag on a lounge chair. I'm late on purpose because my friend isn't coming today to grant me a protective social bubble. I squint across the broad expanse of white concrete, scanning the bright blue water of the large wave pool. The 50-some-odd attendees, almost exclusively over 50 years old except for me, are already scattered throughout the fan-shaped pool doing their warm-up laps. The waves are on gentle, a constant roll emanating from the deep end. I shuck my maternity cover-up and shoes, grab my giant sun hat, and hurry to get a noodle. We use the white foam pool toys as props that help us float or provide resistance. I get the last one and wade into the cool water, which feels blissful on a hot June morning like today. I inhale in relief as I get deeper, the water taking some of the weight of my bump, easing the pressure points on the pads of my feet. I head in against the gentle tide, eager to focus and get a good workout from it. Before the extra 30 pounds of pregnancy, I was very fit. I never would have been welcome here back then, young and trim, but now I'm embraced into the fold like a long-lost relative. Not quite one of them, but also no longer not one of them. I come up on a hind cluster of ladies as I head deeper, and although I try to keep my head down under the shade of my hat, one of the women notices me and smiles sweetly. "When are you due, my dear?" I suck in breath and smile back. Just a couple of weeks. Her smile broadens, her yellowed teeth gleaming in the refractions of the chlorinated water. "Do you know what it is?" I can't help it. My smile broadens too. I nod. "A girl." "Wonderful," she says, sounding equal parts honest and disappointed. "Good for you." "Thanks," I mutter, turning my head up to the sky for something to look at. Deep, rich Texan blue. Clouds smearing the distance like fierce omens. The air today is electric. Could be an afternoon storm setting itself up, but everyone seems to feel it. The buzz of the women chatting ahead of us is louder than normal, even an almost startling clash of laughter and outcries, and vocalized confessions forced loud under the breath. The woman takes the hint and parts to the side, leaving me to push through the current. My shins already ache. I wonder if I'll get the famous varicose veins of late pregnancy. Each new side effect I get is one that will potentially never go away. They have that knack. Get spider veins once and they'll linger off and on for your whole life. Relentless time, steady blemishes. It occurs to me, looking at the women scattered around me, that this is how most of them came to look the way they do. They're decked out in every color and pattern imaginable. Black, tropicals, pastels, neons, solids, and prints. Florals, stripes, polka dots, geometrics, animal prints, watercolors, and more. They, like me, have on sun protection in the form of UV shirts, glasses, dorky swim skirts, and hats of every variation. Broad-brimmed, floppy numbers, ball caps, visors, and fisherman's style with a flap hanging down to cover the back of the neck. Strings tied under the chin, elastics in the hair, or gravity-defying balance at jaunty angles. Others opt for bare, over-tanned shoulders and brightly dyed hair glistening in the sun. There are wrinkled décolletages, skin browned, blued, and spotted with time and elements, neck waddles, oversized noses, large moles, and heavy arm flabs waving in the open air. They never stop moving. When they stay in one spot, they bounce and jog in place, churning the water with their noodles arching side to side, their knees bobbing up and down as they have loud conversations over the splash. Right now, about half of the group is to the sides at the shallower end of the wave pool, using the concrete edge to do assisted push-ups. I go deeper than most of them and do 10 wide stance push-ups with my belly bump dipping in and out of the water, then 10 triceps push-ups for good measure. The cackling and shrieks of the group echo across the whole park. Maybe they're amped up because it's Friday. I can't imagine that it'd matter to most of them though. Surely the majority are retired and don't much care which day of the week it is. As I pause to stretch my arms, another woman catches my eye. "And how are you?" she asks. "Good, thanks." No friend today? I smile. Not this time. How long do you have? She asks, not needing to clarify. About 2 weeks. Oh my, she says. Do you know what you're having? A girl. Your first? Yes. She smiles, nods, turns away. They change everything, she adds, almost not even to me. At some unspoken signal, the women spread out, clumped in pairs in small groups as they claim their area for the bulk of the class. I use the wall to get even farther in, wanting my customary back corner. I'm tall enough to need the deeper end to keep my whole body submerged, necessary for the bouncing type of moves we tend to do there. Mama doesn't jump on land anymore. Despite having to brush past a few ladies, no one else tries to chat with me. It isn't until I finally stand still and look up that I fully register how rowdy the girls are today. Maybe it's being all clustered in one big pool instead of spread among the length of the lazy river, which we sometimes use instead. Maybe it's Friday. Maybe it's the storm clouds in the distance, lending the electricity to the bright yellow heat of the morning. They bob and churn like the bubbles in a pot, a vibrant clash of energy and gossip. No, it's my knee. I have to stretch it every day or it's so stiff I can't move it when I wake up. He doesn't really need to keep working. She just can't stand having him home all day. On Tuesday, he said, making a huge batch of cookies so I have extra to take to the party. I jog gently in the deep, wedged between the side of the wave pool and the buoyed rope that sections off the deepest end where the waves emanate from. Beside me, on one of the flat-topped white and red buoys, I spot a tiny toad. He's no bigger than my thumbnail, balanced precariously on the foam, his bumpy back looking dry and fragile in the sun. My grandmother's voice echoes from my childhood, chastising, "Put that thing down, it'll give you warts." I crane my neck to look at the ledge above me, high enough to keep the waves in when they're turned up. There's nowhere safer for me to set the little guy. It looks pretty out of reach. I can't imagine how he made it all the way here. In my periphery, at the head of the pool centered above the roped-off portion, I see shifting legs and sneakers. I glance up, squinting against the sun to see a new instructor. He's tall, lanky, scruffy in a charming way. He has on athletic shorts and a lifeguard t-shirt, plus a blue visor that dents his poofy, curly hair. His beard and hair connect to form a dark cloud around his tan face. Equally dark hair shades his wiry legs and arms, corded with muscle. He holds a bright green pool noodle and a big white megaphone that he raises to his mouth. "All right, everybody, how we feeling?" The woman let out a raucous cheer. He grins, a brilliant flash of white teeth in his rich beard. I think I figured out the source of the extra buzz today. Fresh blood. The other instructors we've had so far this summer have been young women, one good and two ambivalent, plus one guy who is sweet but kind of a dink. This guy is different. I study him, and I think styles really do cycle back around. He looks like he could be straight out of the 70s or 80s, young when most of these women were young. He reminds me of pictures of my dad and his friends back when they were my age. These gals type, I would think. "Good to hear," he booms through the speaker. "Everybody warmed up?" A chorus of yeses and whoops. They love that he's playing them like a crowd. The other instructors never do that. "Let's go then," he chants, voice carrying easily out over our heads. What we're going to do first is take the noodle in both hands out in front of you, then push it forward and back in front of you as you do the butt kicks. Heels all the way to your butt, as fast as you can. The deeper you hold your noodle, the more of a challenge it'll be. He sets down the microphone and mimes an out-of-water version of the exercise. I'm surprised and a little impressed by how unselfconscious he seems. He's probably my age or a bit younger, which isn't an age known for not caring. Even 10 months ago, I might have felt totally different if I'd been here with him instructing. I'd have thought about how dorky my long-sleeve sunshirt is, how unflattering my maternity swimsuit underneath is on my shape, and the incongruity of my presence among the older group, and how generally lame it is to do water aerobics. The only reason I don't care now is that pregnancy has knocked it straight out of me. You can't be young and attractive when you're carrying a bowling ball. The bowling ball gets the youth. She happily sucks it out of you. It's a mixed blessing. Freedom from the constant pressure to look this way, act that way, yes, but also a loss of resources, a reduction in status. So I don't care, just like all of these women, which leaves me in a bizarre and fascinating position to analyze why he doesn't care. Young and cute, most guys would be dragging their feet at least a little to teach this class. Just that confident, maybe. Maybe he thinks it's all a joke, but it doesn't seem like it. He seems genuinely cheerful to be here, and as he switches us to our next exercise, and then our next, it becomes apparent that he's actually good at this. Far better than the other instructors so far. He doesn't stall or kill time with stupid filler moves that are too easy even for the frailest among us. He keeps us moving quickly from one thing to the next, each a decent amount of work. It's the first time my heart rate's really been up in class the whole summer. The buzz from the ladies increases. They too have their heart rates up as they churn the water white with effort. They never quit talking and laughing and calling out answers to his megaphone questions. They stop shy of catcalling or flirting the way a group of younger women might. They're too old for such tactlessness. Not that they need to care. They care even less than I do what he thinks of them. Their chatter isn't overt or overtly secretive, but I sense that it's largely about him nonetheless. I wonder if he feels it, their hungry attention, cheerful, buoyant, eager. They've been waiting for someone like him. I notice him gesture to one of the inconspicuous lifeguards off to the side before he raises his speaker again, aims it out across the water. Now, you're going to put your noodle between your legs to float, bicycle with your feet, and breaststroke with your arms. Try not to touch the bottom, all the way from one side to the other and back. Keenly, the women climb onto their noodles like they are water horses and begin paddling across. I check my tiny toad friend and make sure he's okay before I start across, the noodle bumping out far in front of me because of my belly. I hug the buoy rope, skirting only the women who don't first move to avoid me. Most of them do, though. Pregnancy trumps age when it comes to hindrance. They've had more time to get used to theirs, a more gradual decline. As I stroke my way across the pool, I keep looking up to see what the new guard's being called over for. I can't put my finger on it, but something about the way the instructor got his attention and speaks to him in a low voice, megaphone down, makes me think it's vaguely secretive. I'm not the only one who notices. Nothing catches attention quite like someone trying to avoid attention. The buzz of the women turns slightly softer as they run out of breath from the exertion and continue, as I do, to watch the unfolding interaction with the new guard. He's younger, blonder, tanner, more muscular, and less appealing. He looks hairless and of a new generation. He doesn't flirt with the women with smiles and dimple winks. In fact, he avoids them altogether as he crosses back toward one of the buildings and disappears. I touch the far side and begin paddling back, dodging grannies. I wonder if maybe our instructor dude is a head guard and the other guy got in trouble or something. By the time I'm back to my spot, the toad is still there. The younger guard has come back out with one of those incredibly long pull nets used to scoop stuff from the water. He's trailed by 3 other young guards, 1 guy and 2 girls, all in red swimsuits. The women begin to mutter and mumble, asking among themselves if anyone knows what's in the water or what's going on. I have the distinct feeling, as I'm sure do all of them, that we're not being told something. Nice job, everyone, he calls through the speaker. Next up, we're going to do some crunches. Lean back on your noodle and try to bring your legs up to your chest, like this. If you need support, you can back against a wall. He instructs and illustrates as the young male guard begins sweeping the net into the deep end beyond the buoys. I strain my neck, trying to see what might be there, but it's in the middle, far from my side. One of the ladies calls out extra loudly, "What's in the water?" The young guy looks up at our instructor, obviously afraid to answer. Whatever it is, I have a bad feeling. Their unwillingness to tell us makes me think they think we're going to panic if we know, which makes me wonder if we should be panicking. "Now twist with your crunches," he says, angling the megaphone the other direction to repeat. "Now twist." We do, watching the cluster of young guards staring down at something the blonde kid is trying to scoop out. 2 more guards come from the building to watch. A louder woman calls out, "What's over there?" Her voice is undeniable. She must be answered. The mood has shifted from simple curiosity to the beginnings of discontent at being ignored. Finally, our instructor answers her, calling down not on his megaphone but in his strong voice. "It's a tarantula." I hear a single gasp in the very back, near the shallows, but everyone else laughs or sighs and begins chatting again. "Is it alive?" someone asks. A woman in the front center who can see what's going on answers, "Yep, it's just floating there. Got stuck, I guess. It can't get out." "Better than that time they found a dead rat," one woman Phil mutters. She's the one who always talks too loud and pretends to lower her voice while still making sure she's heard by everyone. "Just floating by the drain in the lazy river a couple weeks back. Big old thing." "Be careful with it," another calls up to the cluster of young guards. From where I do my careful crutches, legs wide to leave room, I can't see the tarantula in question. "They have very delicate legs." I nod my agreement, glancing again at the teeny toad, still holding strong. Tarantulas really can't hurt you, and they're cool and beautiful and surprisingly fragile. I hope these young guards handle it with care. I'm afraid they won't. I'm insulted by their assumption that we'd be scared enough to cause trouble just by its presence in the whole wide pool. They're the ones who look nervous, laughing and jumping as they ineffectually try to scoop it into the net. Our instructor switches us to leg presses, holding the noodle underwater with just one foot, and quietly talks to the teens, getting them to be serious and make a real effort to scoop the spider carefully. Okay, he calls to the speaker, now lift to the back, one leg at a time. If you need balance, grab a wall. One of the young male guards tickles one of the girls' necks and she shrieks. Our instructor sets down the megaphone yet again, something of his charm leaking away as he chastises them. He takes a net from the blonde guy and shoos them away. Then he silently fishes into the deep end, his movements slow and careful until the ladies in the center let out a little cheer as he raises the net out of the water. I glimpse a dark round spot that must be the spider clinging to the white webbing. Poor thing, I hope the chlorine won't hurt it. You should hold it, a disembodied voice from the opposite side of the pool calls up. They hardly ever bite. Our instructor pauses, then grins as he walks his hands down the long pole extension toward the net. Yeah, right, he says without his mic. You should hold it. You should, someone else calls, sounding offended. Take it out of the net. Don't just drop it on the ground. Several women raise their voices in agreement, croaking out commands and cheers and something perilously close to taunts. The instructor's white smile slips back into his beard, but he does continue walking his hands towards the net end of the pool, creeping closer and closer to the dark fuzzy spot. If I can see it all the way from here, it must be a pretty big tarantula. Jog in place, he calls out, his voice almost lost over the growing murmur of the women. A filler exercise. Not his style so far. A little disappointing. A woman near me echoes, what? Jog in place. Another steps at her. Just keep moving. But it's not the one hard of hearing she's annoyed with. It's him. He's leaving us hanging. Scoop it out, comes the voice on the far side again, raspy and deep, maybe a smoker. With your hand. Scoop it with your hand. A small chorus of consent rises. Some of the storm clouds across the sun, sending a slight gray over the wave pool. The water is no longer white but blue. People aren't moving much. We're all watching the young man as he carefully lets the end of the pole drop so he can hold the rim of the net instead. The spider is clinging not to the bottom but one side. The cluster of young lifeguards are barely visible, clinging to the side of the building, much like the spider, watching from around the corner like kids sent to bed early before a holiday. I jog in place, holding my belly, pulse high. Jumping jacks, the instructor calls out, and we switch motions. Pick it up, a woman cries like a chant and says it again. Pick it up. But instead of joining the phrase, the other women begin to call out other things. They agree, but they don't need a chant. Scoop it out, they call. Hold it. Let it crawl onto your fingers. Pick it up. I shrink back against the wall, still doing underwater jumping jacks, not bringing my arms overhead because I don't want the splash to disrupt my view. I feel breathless. Not unusual with my diaphragm crammed up under my rib cage, but it doesn't usually happen in this class. The handsome young instructor carefully draws the tarantula out of the net, balancing it on the palm of his large hand. The ladies cheer. Not the same cheer as when he asked how they were feeling or if they were ready for the next thing. A different cheer. A cheer made of smoke and moonlight and a lifetime of corrosion. The instructor lets a small, closed-lipped smile spread his beard, but he looks nervous. He begins walking toward the greenery at the edge of the concrete. The graceful legs of the spider cling to his hand, nothing more than a blur from my corner. The clouds shift again, and the intensifying sun blasts us all with fresh heat. A small woman, the one with arms so thin they look like bones draped in skin, calls softly into a sudden silence. Eat it. There's a group pause, a silence broken only by the sounds of water lapping and swaying, as every single person in the wave pool waits for a reaction. The instructor looks at us with wide eyes, hunched with his own hand far away from himself, as if he can hold the spider at bay. He says nothing. Yeah, a different lady calls, one of the more middle-aged ones. They're a delicacy in some parts of the world. Good for you, even. Probably won't make it after a dip in this chemical water. It might as well. Go ahead, we won't tell. Eat it. Eat it. Have a snack. High peals of laughter chime out like gleeful bells. I press my palms flat against the high wall behind me. My noodle floats in front of me, forgotten. I can't tell if they're joking. He can't either. The women don't break into a chant, don't taunt him, don't jeer. They simply explode into delighted, wild conversations about the types of bugs and animals you can eat. Times they saw spiders in their houses and cars, recipes that call for unusual things, how they're tired of cooking over a hot stove in this crazy summer heat. But they don't take their eyes from him. The young man reaches the bushes, begins to squat, his back partially to us, almost fully to me, so that all I can see of his arm is the very far edge of his outstretched hand, the one that holds the tarantula. That over-loud woman, the one with the voice that carries no matter what, repeats once, "Eat it! Do it!" I look again to the instructor, crouched over the bushes, frozen. Finally, he twitches, begins to move his arm. My mouth parts in horrible anticipation, and I realize that I too want him to. Some morbid impulse, a stray feeling of revenge. I have a flash of what he'd look like, those brown, hairy legs protruding helter-skelter from his lips, almost lost in the dark bush of his beard. I can almost hear the crunch, see the waving struggle of brittle limbs. The thought is too real, as if I'm conjuring it. If he does it now, I'll feel complicit. I can't stay to see if he'll lower his hand to the leaves or raise it to his lips. I glance down in time to see my tiny toes slip into the water, his back legs pumping once, twice, and I scoop him out, balanced in one palm, the other cupped like a lid. He's almost weightless. I feel his quiet, frantic moments in time with my own pounding pulse as I turn, without looking back, and begin to wade toward the shallow. Behind me, around me, the women boil and bubble. In the hollow of my hand, sudden warmth as the toad releases his bladder in fear. And that is the end of Churn, the Unturning Tide by Annie Neugebauer, and that is from Other Terrors, an Inclusive Anthology that was published in 2022, so it's a recent one. So tune back in if you want to see me read more. I'll be reading a lot. This is kind of a way for me to continue reading and feel like I have a purpose in reading, so hopefully I'll read a lot more books this year. All right, thanks. Bye.